Boba freaking Fett, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a few days and I just still can't believe it. I can't believe we live in a world where, after all this time, 37 years now, people have been waiting to see him come back, that he's actually alive again. He's basically been the Schrodinger's bounty hunter this whole time, both simultaneously alive and dead. I think I speak for a lot of fans when we say that we've carried the Boba is still alive torch for years at this point. We've been wanting to see him come back, and we just didn't know in what form, because, George Lucas, unofficially said he was alive back when he made Return of the Jedi, because, he even wanted to make a scene where he crawls out of the pit, but he couldn't find a place to put it in. George infamously found out later that he had become super popular, and he didn't know why. He's not a major character, but I think his design is what made him so popular. Unfortunately, I had kind of seen the news reports from months ago where it said Tamora Morrison was cast in a role, and when they say Tamora Morrison's going to be in a Star Wars show that takes place after Return of the Jedi, there's really no one else he could play except for maybe Captain Rex. So it wasn't entirely a surprise for me, but I've been calling this since last season, and a lot of us have, when we heard that guy walking and we heard him, he had spurs or something when he was walking, and it's I'm pretty sure the only guy that has that in Star Wars, the spurs when he walks, is Boba Fett in Cloud City, in that scene in Empire Strikes Back. So I could not be more stoked about The Mandalorian right now, because, it's been so long. We've all wanted to see him come back, and it's so great that they got Tamora Morrison to come back. But you know who I feel really bad for? Jeremy Bulloch. He's kind of got the short end of the stick here, because he played him in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and he stated for years that he wanted to play him again. But, at this point, I think he's almost 80 years old or something. So, Tamora Morrison is not exactly young either. He's 60, but I just think it's cool that he gets to play him again, at least. Now, what would also be cool is if maybe we got some flashbacks, or maybe a separate series about younger Boba Fett, and you can get Daniel Logan to come back, who played him as a little kid in episode 2. That'd be pretty awesome. Now, the way they brought him back in the first episode, I thought was pretty well done. This character, Cobb Vanth, who I didn't know about because I hadn't read the Star Wars Aftermath books, played by Timothy Olyphant. When he first showed up, I think all of us were like, oh, that's not him. Yeah, that's crazy. He's wearing his armor, but that's clearly not him. He's too lanky. The armor doesn't fit right on him. He's got a scarf around his neck, too. So that was kind of a cool fake out at first, but not actually showing him until, just for a few seconds at the end of the episode, I think was cool. I just hope that they aren't baiting us and making us wait longer. I hope episode 2, immediately we get more Boba Fett. That'd be great. And I'm still holding out hope we get a flashback showing how he got out of the Sarlacc, because, there's been fan art of that for years at this point, and I remember I even wrote, my own fan version of how I want that scene to go down. I even thought about, possibly doing a fan film of showing how he got out, but maybe I don't have to now after this. The whole episode was basically like a quest from KOTOR. I still haven't played KOTOR, even though I've had it downloaded for a long time. I fully intend to play it at some point, but from what I understand, there's a quest in that game where they hunt a crate dragon, and they do exactly what they did in this episode, where they blow it up from underneath where it's vulnerable, and that's pretty awesome. To finally see an actual crate dragon in Star Wars after 40 years was a dream come true as well, and something I didn't know, I didn't realize there was 2 types of crate dragons. There's the canyon crate dragon, which is the one that looks like a big iguana, and I've seen art of that before, but what I didn't realize was there's the greater crate dragon, which is the gigantic one from this episode, and I guess the we only see his head and neck in this, and which is interesting. There's art out there of what the rest of his body looks like under the sand, and I guess he just swims through the sand with his just 10 legs or something. It's pretty crazy. And I think a greater Krayt Dragon is what was in episode 4 as well, the skeleton that C-3PO and R2 walk by. Pretty sure that's the same thing. And you can tell that Jon Favreau, when he wrote this, I mean, you could tell he's a huge Star Wars fan and like knows the deep lore, because something else I didn't realize was the pearl that they got out of his body. Like, I was like, what is that? Is it an egg or something? And then I found out that that's also from KOTOR, where I guess there's a pearl inside the Krayt Dragon that you collect once you kill it. And that little Easter egg in there, like, most people just won't even know what that is. But the fact that Jon Favreau knows the lore enough that he took something from KOTOR and put it in this episode just shows you that he really knows his stuff. And it's a shame that the people doing the movies aren't this knowledgeable. JJ, RJ. And seeing Tusken Raiders run at full speed away from that cave is one of the funniest things I've seen in Star Wars. It's pretty hilarious. I mean, apart from the hype about Boba Fett, like, overall, it was an excellent season premiere, I think. I think it sets the stage for a really great season. It's still following the traditional, like, Western tropes. This whole episode's basically like the classic Western story of, like, the sheriff recruits townspeople to go kill off this creature that's terrorizing their town, but they have to team up with, or like the reluctant townspeople have to team up with this other group of people that they don't want to have to deal with, but they have to help each other for the greater good. Like, it's straight out of a Western. And I like Easter eggs as much as the next person, but one criticism I think I have of this episode, and maybe the show as a whole, is there might be one too many references in this episode, because the problem with having so many little Easter eggs like this is it makes the universe feel cramped, feel too small. Like, for example, they had, I think it was Anakin's pod race that Cobb was riding. It sure looked like it. It looked like the engine from his pod racer. And then R4, I mean, I'm pretty positive that was R4. So, like, I mean, what are the odds that Mos Pelgo is supposed to be pretty far away from Mos Eisley and Mos Espa? So it's like, what are the odds that Anakin's pod racer engine ends up in that guy's hands and that he's with Din Djarin? It's like pretty unlikely. But yeah, it's a cool little Easter egg, but realistically, I don't know how plausible that is. R4, I think, makes more sense being in Mos Eisley, because that's the last place we saw him in, I believe. So that I don't really have a problem with. It's just that the compounding effect of, like, too many references to the past, I think, can sometimes be a detriment to the show. But overall, I think this was an excellent first episode for this season, and I just can't freaking wait to see more Boba Fett. It was pretty cool seeing those creepy dogs that the Tusken Raiders have as pets. We haven't seen those since, what, episode 2, I think? Yeah, that was an example of an Easter egg that works, because it makes sense that they're there in Tatooine, and it's not like an unlikely thing like the Anakin pod racer thing. And although we still might see a flashback of Boba getting out of the Sarlacc, I did quite enjoy how they kind of made a slight homage to all those pieces of artwork, where when they showed Din Djarin, like, being eaten by the Krayt Dragon, and then, like, him flying out of his mouth and shooting, like, what was that, like some kind of electricity into his mouth. That was clearly an homage to that artwork. And man, how awesome was it to see Din Djarin and Cobb Vanth in the Boba armor, like, just flying around that thing and shooting at it. That was so cool. Like, anytime I see any live action Mandalorians at this point, it always makes me happy, especially after seeing so much of them in animated form in Clone Wars. It's just so great to see them in action now, finally. So what do we think they're going to do with Boba? Do you think is he going to, like, fight Din Djarin for the title of Mandalore, or whatever that is? I definitely think he's going to get his armor back somehow. What if all this is a trick and it's actually Captain Rex? No, I doubt it. I don't think they'd do that. Especially in the episode when they have his armor. They're not going to be teases like that. I do hope we see more Cobb Vanth. He was a pretty cool character, and Timothy Olyphant plays him pretty well. Another cool little, or a couple little cool details that I appreciated too, were the Krayt Dragon makes that strange wailing sound that they've changed. Like George has changed like 3 times, and each time it's gotten progressively worse in each version of the movies. And a little subtle thing they did was in the wide shots of all the banthas in the Dune Sea, they're moving in single file. I mean, remember the old Ben Kenobi quote that he'd said about them traveling single file to hide their numbers. And I know a common complaint of the show is that people say nothing is happening in the show and that it seems to be like spinning its wheels and there's no like major plot driving forward. I don't understand that criticism because, well, one, it's supposed to be like emulating a Western, so it's like, I see it, Din Djarin is kind of like Mad Max, I think, where he just makes a lot of stops on the way to wherever he's going to help different communities. He has all these little adventures dotted along the way of, like, there's one overarching main quest, which is get Baby Yoda to his kind, which, the Jedi. But I think I'm perfectly fine with having him do little side jobs and little small adventures here and there. I just enjoy being in this universe and seeing corners of the universe that we haven't seen before, like crate dragons on Tatooine and stuff like that. So let me know what you thought of the episode and the show overall so far down in the comments, and let me know, what are you looking forward to most? Do you want to see just more adventures with Baby Yoda and Din Djarin, or are you just completely stoked like I am to see more Boba Fett? Let me know down in the comments. And I'll probably be back next week to talk about episode 2, and make a short video on that. Here's hoping that they don't keep us waiting for more Boba Fett next week, but I have the feeling they're going to show us right away more of him. So if you're a fan of Star Wars or The Mandalorian or just all things nerdy, I suppose, consider subscribing, dropping a like, all those things, commenting, etc., etc.